Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Renu Tyagi from Sardar Patel Institute of Economic and Social Research, Ahmedabad. Today we will talk about the module The Global Prevalence and Secular Trends in Obesity under the paper Physiology and Sports Anthropology. Now let's see what are the learning objectives or learning outcome of this particular module. We'll study the prevalence of the obesity globally or the world over. We'll try and understand the difference between the childhood obesity and the adolescent obesity. We'll be studying the secular trends in obesity worldwide, that is the change over the generations in the obesity pattern or trends. We'll be able to understand the measures for assessing the obesity among the individuals. Now let's see what obesity is. The obesity is defined as a chronic condition which is characterized by the excessive accumulation of the body fat or the body weight, and it is determined by our genes and the environmental exposures or the expressions and the interaction between the genes and the environmental factors. As per the WHO World Health Organization 1996, the obesity may be defined as a condition of abnormal and excessive fat accretion in our adipose tissues up to the extent that health may be impaired. Later on in 2005, WHO defines obesity as a condition in which the fat stores are in excess, or that is, the energy intake either has been or is greater than the energy expenditure of an individual. The obesity is a result of excess energy intake and inadequate physical activity, which is an indicator of our sedentary or unhealthy lifestyle. The obese individual differ not only in the amount of the excess fat they have or they store, but it also shows that there is a different levels of regional distribution of this excess fat in our body. This regional distribution of the fat in different parts of our body affects or influences the risk associated with the obesity. As different body parts fat deposition affects the different body functions and hence result in different kind of health issues and the diseases which we are affected with. Obesity is one of the major health problems world over today which affects a person both physically as well as the psychologically. Although obesity was a topic of some medical concern earlier for centuries together, but now the obesity has progressed from being an amusing curiosity to a major health issues. There are many diseases related to the obesity today which are known to everybody, and some of which are to be mentioned here are the heart diseases and stroke, high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer and osteoarthritis. Now let's see what is childhood and adolescent obesity. According to the World Health Organization 2000, the childhood obesity is defined as the accumulation of high body fat or adipose tissue in relation to lean body mass which adversely affect the health. Obesity among children and adolescents is a serious and challenging health issue. It is one of the most prevalent and increasing health problem in both developed and underdeveloped countries. The trend of obesity and overweight status among children and adolescents in both the sexes is increasing among all age groups, races and income level. Overweight or obesity status as assessed by the body mass index, if present during childhood, is found to be typically continued till adulthood and progressively increases with the age. Gyo and Chumlia study in 1999 noted that there is an 80% risk of developing adult obesity at the age of 35 years in person who were obese at 9 years or older. According to the finding of a study carried out by Whitaker et al. In 1997, the obese children less than 3 years of age without obese parents are at the low risk for obesity in adulthood. But among elder children, obesity is an increasingly important predictor of adult obesity regardless of whether their parents are obese. A child or adolescent with a high body mass index percentile on the CDC body mass index for age growth chart has a high risk of being overweight or obese at 35 years of his or her age, and this risk increases with the age as per the study by Gu et al. In 2002. There are several critical periods for the development of obesity. For instance, during the intrauterine period to early infancy, the preschool years, and the adolescence. The intrauterine period extending to early infancy is crucial because of maternal eating habits during pregnancy. High body mass index during infancy is attributed to the birth weight, feeding methods, and the gender of the child, as well as the rapid growth during infancy is linked with the increased body mass index at 6 years of age, as per a study conducted by the Gunnar daughter and Thor's daughter in 2003. Infants of the mother who smoked in pregnancy were lighter at birth than infants of non-smokers, but from adolescence, that is the age of 11 for females and 16 for males, they had an increased risk of being in the fattest deciles of body mass index as revealed by a study of Power et al. In 2002. The next critical period for the development of obesity is during the preschool years when adiposity rebound occur. Now, what is adiposity rebound? It is a point where body fatness increases after a period of decline to a minimum, and it's related to the adult obesity. In normal circumstances, body fatness decreases after the first year of life and it increases between the age 5 to 8 years. However, adiposity rebound in children between 4 to 6 years is associated with adulthood obesity, and parental obesity is found to be the most important contributing factor. The next phase, that is adolescent, is a phase with strong emotional and social ramification, and it is found to be associated with the changes in health behavior that may increase risk towards overweight status and obesity. Adolescence is a period between puberty and adulthood. As we all know that puberty is accompanied by the body fat changes such as alteration in fat distribution, with female adolescent accumulating more fat than boys for reproductive development. The pediatric obesity adversely contribute to children's short and long-term physical and psychosocial health outcome, and it is largely responsible for the adult morbidity and premature mortality. A study conducted by Mutunga et al. In 2006 to test for the socio-economic differences in some biological and behavioral risk factor for obesity among the adolescents of Northern Ireland. The adolescents of higher socio-economic status reported significantly lower habitual energy intake, significantly higher level of habitual physical activity and had significantly higher cardiorespiratory fitness. In this study, prevalence of overweight and obesity, that is BMI of more than 85th percentile, in the cohort was found to be 29.1% and it was slightly but not significantly higher in the low versus the high socio-economic group. Therefore, we can say that there is a clear manifestation that the seriousness of childhood obesity lies in its health, social and economic consequences. Children with unhealthy body weight are at risk for developing complex physical, cognitive, emotional and psychosocial health problems. Further, overweight in adolescents is also found to be linked with the long-term mortality and morbidity. Let's have a look at some measures of the obesity. The body mass index is one of the simple measures of the obesity. The body mass index is defined as the ratio of body weight in kilograms by the square of height in meters. As per the International Classification of Body Mass Index given by the WHO in 2004, a person with a BMI of 30 or more is considered as obese. This BMI cutoff is age independent and it's same for both the sexes. It can be used to estimate the prevalence of obesity in a population. BMI does not account for the wide variation in the body fat distribution and may also not correspond to the same degree of fatness and associated health risk. BMI is a very useful measure of the total obesity, but it does not distinguish between weight associated with muscles and weight associated with the fat. Therefore, BMI predicts an excess of whole body fat. Now let's have a look at the classification of BMI with the risk of comorbidities. As per the standards of WHO 1998, there is a classification of the BMI representing the kind of obesity and the risk of comorbidities. As you can see from this table that BMI with less than 18.5 kg per meter square represents an individual to be an underweight and having a risk of comorbidities quite low. But the risk of other clinical problems may increase at the BMI of 18.5. An individual with a normal BMI between 18.5 to 24.9 kg per meter square represents an normal individual and they have the average risk of comorbidities. Similarly, with a person of overweight or obese categories show an increased risk of the comorbidities. Whereas an obese individual belonging to class 1, class 2 and class 3 category shows the moderate, severe and very severe risk of comorbidities respectively. Now let's have a look at some other measure of the obesity. Some of the important measures of obesity include grand mean thickness, waist circumference, waist hip circumference, waist height ratio and appendicular central ratio and the body fat estimation. Now let's have a look at these measures one by one. Now let's have a look at the secular trend of obesity in the Southeast Asian countries. Now let's talk about the Thailand and India. As we can see from this table that there is an increasing prevalence of obesity in both the countries. Especially if we'll talk about the 18 plus individual or the adult individual, we can see that there is an increase in the obesity year after year. And it's clearly seen from the table that the prevalence of obesity is more among the females as compared among the males. And since 2010 to 2014, the obesity has significantly increased in both these countries. Now let's have a look at the countries from the Western Pacific region. And as we can see from this table that Australia, Japan and China have been highlighted in this particular table, and we can see a significant proportion of the Australian origin are found to have a quite significant prevalence of the obesity in its population. The almost 28% of the males and 28% of the females are found to be affected due to the obesity. However, as compared to Australia, the China-Japan population is relatively more influenced or have a lower prevalence of the obesity, but they do have a prevalence or increasing prevalence of the obesity in its population. Here also we can see that males are less affected as compared to the females, or the prevalence of obesity is more among the women as compared to the men. But in the case of Japan, it's almost equally distributed population having the obesity, both male and female. What is grand mean thickness? That is GMT. The skin fold thicknesses reveals the development of adipose tissue overlying the body as well as the general obesity. Grand mean thickness is obtained as the sum of all the skin fold thicknesses taken at different sites divided by the number of skin fold thickness sites taken, which may be taken at the different body sites like chin, calf, biceps, triceps, etc. The next measure to be discussed is the waist circumference. The waist circumference taken at the narrowest position of waist along the horizontal axis with the help of a flexible steel tape, and the value recorded at the normal relaxed breathing is the measurement for waist circumference. This is also one of the central obesity index, as excess fat in the intra-abdominal depots in obese individuals make them more prone to be at the risk of negative health consequences. Therefore, waist circumference may be a good estimate of overall body fat, and it provides a better and practical method of identifying individuals at an increased risk of obesity-related illness due to the central fat distribution. The other important measurement is the waist-hip circumference ratio, that is WHR. The ratio of the waist circumference to the hip circumference is an important index of assessing the body fat distribution. This measure is found to be the most sensitive index of the metabolic abnormalities among the obese. Then the use of neck, bust, waist or hip circumference measurement alone, as per a study revealed by the Hartz et al. In 1980. The distribution of the fat around the waist is known as the android distribution or the apple-shaped obesity, whereas the distribution of more fat around the buttocks and thigh is known as the gynoid distribution, or it may be called pear-shaped obesity. The android type fat distribution has a higher cardiovascular morbidity and mortality risk than the gynoid type of fat distribution, and this is revealed by a study carried out by Lean et al. In 1990. The waist height ratio is another important measure. It is measured as the ratio of waist circumference to the height. It is one of the best simple anthropometric index in predicting a wide range of cardiovascular risk factors and related health condition. A straightforward message recommended by Ho et al. In 2003 is that the waist circumference should not exceed half of the stature value. The other measurement is appendicular central ratio, that is ACR. It is defined as the ratio of the sum of circumferences at appendicular region with upper arm circumference and the calf circumference to the summation of circumferences at central region with waist and the hip circumference. It is used to evaluate the distribution pattern of the subcutaneous fat and the shift towards central or appendicular obesity with the age. The next important measure is the body fat estimation. As we all know that body composition is one of the important tools available for more detailed characterization of obesity. Within the body composition, there are different methods available to measure the body fat. For instance, the methods like underwater weighing, magnetic resonance imaging, and bioelectrical impedance analyzer, etc. But due to the associated high cost involved with these measurements, their usefulness is quite limited. However, the body fat can be calculated with the help of skin fold thickness measurement and applying the regression equation, particularly in the field condition. Now let's see a global prevalence of the obesity trends. Obesity is increasing globally, including the developing countries. The incidence of obesity has been increasing rapidly since 1980s. Obesity was once considered a problem only in high-income countries, but it is on the rise in some low and middle-income countries as well. There are evidences that obesity is increasing faster among the groups with lower socio-economic status as per a study conducted by Montero et al. In 2002, particularly in the Western industrialized societies. This is due to the abundant and widespread availability of the processed and the fast food, which are high in calories, coupled with their sedentary lifestyle and the stress of modern life, which have contributed to this global health issue. Obesity ranks among the top 10 in the list of leading risk factors underlying the total burden of disease worldwide. In 2010, overweight and obesity were estimated to cause 3.4 million deaths, 4% of the year of the life lost, and 4% of the disability adjusted life years worldwide, as per the study conducted by Lim et al. In 2012. In 2014, more than 1.9 billion were found to be overweight, of which over 600 million of them were obese. These figures are as given by the World Health Organization in 2015. On the whole, about 13%, including 11% of the men and 15% of the women of the world's adult population was obese in 2014. The global prevalence of obesity is increased from 30% to 100% over the past decades in the country which are in the intermediate development stages. Sedentary lifestyle, decreased physical activity and high caloric intake are few of many behavioral determinants associated with the obesity. The long-term effects associated with obesity are the heart diseases, cancer, stroke, and type 2 diabetes. These diseases are included in the top leading cause of death in United States as per the study conducted by CDC in 2007. The global prevalence of obesity has more than doubled between 1980 and 2014 as per the WHO standards in 2015. This increase in the prevalence of obesity will lead to a significant increase in the cost of health care and rise in chronically disability because of its close association between obesity and assorted chronic diseases. A comprehensive epidemiological study was undertaken on the Pacific island of Costa Federated State of Micronesia FSM by Schmolz et al. 2001. The outcome of the study was out of the total population, 24% were found to be obese and 12% diabetic and 17% were found to be hypertensive with 20% as dyslipidemic. The gender affected the frequency of all 4 disorders. Parity affected the frequency of dyslipidemia. Smoking affected the frequency of obesity and diabetes. Village residence affected the frequency of obesity, hypertension and dyslipidemia, and age affected the frequency of all 4 types of disorders. So students, now let's summarize what we have studied in this particular module so far. We have understood the concept of obesity. We have understood the difference in childhood obesity and adulthood obesity. And we have seen the secular trend over years in the obesity worldwide over. Now let's see some specific examples which we have been studied or which we have conducted recently. According to a recent cross-sectional study carried out by the Mungrafi and Kapoor in 2010, the mean BMI was found to be lowest among the youngest age group and it found to increase with the age. This increased till 59 years of age and later on it declined. So the prevalence of overweight and obesity is found to be about 27% as assessed from the Asian cutoff point. The conclusion of the studies is that overweight and obesity are found to be associated with the age. Similarly, many other studies have revealed that the obesity is found to be related with the age, marital status, physical activity level, the lifestyle of an individual and the improvement in the socio-economic status, especially the occupation and the income of an individual. When compared with the urban non-tribal Indian females who have a higher socio-economic or who belong to a higher socio-economic status, the prevalence of overweight and obesity among the Tangkhul female is found to be lower, indicating its association with the socio-economic status. So in this study, we could see or it is evidenced that obesity exists in all regions of the world, including the developing countries, particularly among the women, except in the American origin where 24% of the men are found to be obese as against the 13% of the women as per the WHO standards or WHO Global Health Observatory Data Repository 2014. The overall global prevalence of obesity is found to be more than 10% among men and 15% among the women. The Southeast Asian countries or Southeast Asian region, which has the lowest prevalence of the obesity, that is 3.2% among the men and 6.8% among the women. On the other hand, the European region has the highest prevalence of obese women, which is more than 24%. The WHO Global Health Observatory Data Repository 2014 uses the BMI standard or body mass index standard of more than 30 kg per meter square to classify the obesity. for the global comparison. Among the selected countries of the African region, the prevalence of obesity among the men in Africa was found to be more than 18% and 30% among the women. The South African country had the highest prevalence of obesity among its women population, which is about more than 37%. So, we can see that in developing countries like Ethiopia, where the traditional lifestyle is still maintained, there is little or no weight gained with the age. So, this shows that there is a regional variation in the obesity trends all over the world. Thank you.